The boardroom fell silent as Vexera Corthany's crimson eyes swept across the assembled aliens. Her pale, translucent skin seemed to pulse with an inner coldness that made even the most hardened corporate executives shift uncomfortably in their seats. The Terran woman, if she could still be called that after decades of cybernetic enhancements, stabbed her metallic fingernails against the obsidian table with mechanical precision. Profit margins on Kepler 44b have dropped by 0.003%, she stated, her voice devoid of any emotion. Explain. The Zephyrian delegate, his blue tentacles quivering, stammered through his report, while Vexera's augmented mind processed 17 different stock projections simultaneously. As CEO of Quantum Dynamics Corporation, she commanded a fleet of 300 mining vessels, employed over 2 million beings across 47 star systems, and held enough political influence to topple governments with a single neural command. She had built her empire on the bones of her competitors and the tears of those foolish enough to show weakness. Empathy was a luxury she had surgically removed, along with her original heart, literally. The quantum processor now beating in her chest calculated risk, profit, and loss with perfect mathematical precision. Terminate the Kepler operation, she commanded. Liquidate all assets. The 17,000 workers can find employment elsewhere. The Zephyrian's bioluminescent spots flickered in distress. Ma'am, those families have lived on Kepler for generations. Their entire civilization is economically inefficient. Vexera's enhanced vocal cords modulated to a frequency that made every being in the room flinch. I don't run a charity, Ambassador Cryalthus. I run the most successful corporation in known space because I make decisions based on data, not sentiment. As the delegates filed out in defeated silence, Vexera remained alone, staring out at the nebula beyond her orbital headquarters. The Crimson Veil Nebula stretched across the viewport like spilled blood. Beautiful and terrible, much like herself, she supposed. Her assistant's hologram materialized beside her chair. Ma'am, there's been an incident on mining platform Omega. A structural collapse in Sector 12. Casualties. 43 confirmed dead, 116 injured. The survivor reports are ... disturbing. Vexera's processors automatically began calculating the cost of wrongful death lawsuits, insurance payouts, and replacement workers. Define disturbing. The miners claim they heard laughter just before the collapse. Human laughter, coming from the depths of the asteroid. For the first time in decades, Vexera felt something her quantum heart couldn't immediately categorize. A flutter of ... curiosity. Impossible. She had eliminated such inefficiencies long ago. Prep my personal transport, she commanded, already striding toward the door. I'm going to Omega 7 personally. Her assistant's projection flickered with surprise. Ma'am, you haven't left headquarters for 18 months, 4 days, 7 hours. Vexera's lips curved in what might have been a smile, but resembled more the expression of a predator sizing up prey. Sometimes, the most profitable investments require personal attention. As her sleek black ship detached from the station and accelerated toward the mining platform, Vexera couldn't shake the strange sensation that something fundamental was about to change. Her quantum heart hummed with cold efficiency, but somewhere in the depths of her enhanced mind, a ghost of her former humanity stirred, intrigued by the mystery of laughter in the darkness of space. Mining platform Omega 7 hung like a metallic parasite against the scarred surface of asteroid XK739, its industrial arms boring deep into the rock with mechanical hunger. Vexera's transport docked with a soft pneumatic hiss, and she stepped onto the platform wearing her signature black envirosuit, its surface gleaming with embedded quantum processors that monitored everything from atmospheric composition to gravitational fluctuations. Platform Supervisor Nithara Vasa, hulking Kratosian, with 4 arms and skin like living stone, greeted her with barely concealed nervousness. CEO Corthany, we weren't expecting. I don't announce my inspections, Supervisor. Vexara's enhanced vision scanned the platform, noting 17 safety violations within the first 30 seconds. Show me Sector 12. They descended through the platform's central shaft, past layers of processing equipment and worker habitats, carved directly into the asteroid. The deeper they went, the more Vexara noticed the workers' behavior. They whispered among themselves, shooting glances toward the sealed-off section where the collapse had occurred. Fear emanated from them, like heat from a fusion reactor. The miners were working a new vein, Nethera explained, as they reached the restricted zone. Rich deposits of crystallized chromium worth more than most planets' GDP. Then the laughter started. Describe it. Human, female, according to the survivors. But joyful. Like someone had just discovered the most wonderful secret in the universe. The Cretosian's stone-like features shifted uncomfortably. It echoed through the tunnels for 3 days before the collapse. Vexara's quantum heart processed the data with mechanical precision, but something else stirred beneath. Her enhanced consciousness. Have you investigated the source? The tunnels are unstable. We've lost 2 probe drones to further collapses, and Nethera hesitated. The laughter continues. Even now, as if summoned by his words, the sound drifted through the sealed bulkhead, a melodic, crystalline laugh that seemed to resonate through the very atoms of the asteroid. Vexara's enhanced hearing analyzed the acoustic signature, human female, approximately 25 Earth years, exhibiting neural patterns consistent with extreme euphoria or discovery. But that was impossible. The only humans on the platform were hardened miners, their joy ground away by decades of corporate servitude. And this laughter, it spoke of wonder, of pure, untainted happiness that she hadn't heard since before she had carved the weakness from her soul. Open the seal, she commanded. Ma'am, the structural integrity, open it. Vexara's voice carried the harmonic frequency that made her corporate decrees impossible to refuse. I'm going in. At least take a security detail. No. The laugh came again, closer now, and Vexara felt her quantum processor struggling to categorize the emotion it triggered. This requires ... a personal touch. The bulkhead iris dilated with a grinding shriek of protesting metal. Beyond lay a tunnel carved through living rock, its walls studded with veins of chromium that pulsed with their own inner light. The laughter echoed from the depths, growing stronger with each step Vexara took into the darkness. Her suit's scanners detected no life signs, no atmospheric disturbances, no explanation for the sound that seemed to bypass her ears entirely and resonate directly in her enhanced bones. Yet, she pressed forward. Drawn by something her quantum heart couldn't calculate, her hunger she thought she had eliminated decades ago. The hunger to understand joy. The tunnel branched ahead, splitting into 3 passages. The laughter seemed to come from all directions at once, as if the asteroid itself had learned to feel happiness. Vexara chose the central path, her footsteps echoing in the chromium-lit darkness, and then she saw her, or rather, the impossibility of her, in a natural chamber deep within the asteroid, where no human should have been able to survive. A young woman sat cross-legged on the floor, her back to the entrance. She wore simple mining coveralls, but they seemed to shimmer with the same inner light as the chromium veins. Her hair fell in dark waves around her shoulders, and when she laughed that pure, joyous sound, the very walls seemed to pulse in harmony. Vexara's quantum heart stopped for exactly 0.3 seconds, an eternity in digital time. The woman turned around, revealing a face that belonged in ancient Earth mythologies, not beautiful in any conventional sense, but radiant with a joy so pure it hurt to witness. Her eyes met Vexara's enhanced gaze, and she smiled. "Hello," she said, her voice carrying the same musical quality as her laughter. "I've been waiting for you." "That's impossible," Vexara stated. her enhanced vocal processors struggling to maintain their usual emotional flatness. This chamber has been sealed for geological ages. No human could survive without life support. The woman impossibly young. Impossibly, Aleve tilted her head with an expression of curious delight. "Oh, but I'm not surviving," she said, her voice like wind chimes in a solar breeze. "I'm thriving. My name is Lyra-Length, Starweaver, though I suppose that's not exactly accurate anymore." Vexara's quantum processors ran full spectral analysis on the being before her. The results made no sense. Biological readings suggested a human female, approximately 25 years old, with completely normal vital signs. Yet she existed in a vacuum, in temperatures that should have flash-frozen organic tissue, breathing atmosphere that didn't exist. "You're a hologram," Vexara concluded. "Some kind of projection system left by previous miners." Lyra-Length laughed that same crystalline sound that had haunted the mining platform and gestured to the walls around them. "Touch the cronium," she said. "Feel what it's trying to tell you. I don't, please." The simple word carried such gentle insistence that Vexara found herself extending her metallic hand toward the nearest vein of the rare mineral. "You've spent so long listening to machines. Just once, listen to the universe itself." The moment Vexara's enhanced fingertips made contact with the cronium, her world exploded into sensation. Not pain, she had eliminated her capacity for pain, along with her organic heart, but something far more dangerous. Memory. She was 7 years old again, standing in her grandmother's garden on Mars Colony, watching the first sunrise paint the terraformed sky in impossible shades of gold and amber. She was laughing actually, laughing as her grandmother showed her how flowers grew from tiny seeds, how life could emerge from the most barren soil, if tended with love and patience. "Every star system has its own frequency," her grandmother had said, her weathered hands gentle on young Vexara's shoulders. "If you listen carefully, you can hear them singing to each other across the void. They're not alone, little star. Nothing in the universe is truly alone." The memory shattered as Vexara jerked her hand away from the cronium. Her quantum heart raced through diagnostic cycles, seeking the malfunction that had allowed such weakness to surface. "What did you do to me?" she demanded. Lyra-Length hadn't moved, but her eyes held an ocean of compassion that made Vexara's enhanced vision sensors struggle to process. "I didn't do anything. The cronium is a memory crystal. It stores the emotional resonance of every being who touches it. You just felt an echo of who you used to be. I eliminated that weakness." Vexara's voice cracked. An actual crack in her perfectly modulated vocal processors. "I chose efficiency over sentiment. I chose power over love." Lyra-Length stood gracefully, her movements creating small eddies in the cronium-charged atmosphere. "But love isn't the opposite of power, Vexara. It's the source of the greatest power in the universe. You can't know my name. You can't exist. This is some kind of corporate sabotage, a psychological warfare tactic designed to what? Make you remember that you're more than just profit margins and quarterly reports." Lyra-Length stepped closer, and Vexara noticed that her feet left no prints in the mineral dust. "I'm not your enemy, Vexara. I'm what you buried when you chose to become a machine." The realization hit Vexara's quantum processors like a solar flare. The readings, the impossible survival, the laughter that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "This wasn't a person at all. This was your me," she whispered. "You're what I used to be." Lyra-Length smiled, and for a moment, Vexara saw her own face as it might have been softened by joy instead of hardened by ambition, lit from within by wonder instead of calculation. "I'm what you could be again." The cronium doesn't just store memories, Vexara. It stores possibilities. It stores the futures you abandoned for a more efficient present. Around them, the chamber pulsed with increasing intensity, the veins of cronium beginning to sing in harmonious frequencies. Vexara's enhanced hearing detected 17 different tonal variations, each one corresponding to a different choice she had made over the decades, each one representing a path toward something other than the cold empire she had built. "This isn't real," she said, but her voice carried less conviction now. "I can't just ... undo 30 years of neural enhancement. I can't become weak again. Strong enough to show mercy is stronger than powerful enough to destroy," Lyralanth said, extending her hand. "You wanted to eliminate inefficiency. Nothing is more inefficient than a universe without love. It's the force that builds stars, that creates life, that gives meaning to existence itself." Vexara stared at the offered hand, her quantum heart running probability calculations at light speed. Every rational pathway led to the same conclusion: reject this hallucination, return to the surface, increase mining operations to exploit whatever phenomenon was creating these visions. But for the first time in decades, she ignored her calculations and reached out with her human hand, the one part of her she had never replaced with technology. The moment their fingers touched, the chamber erupted in pure light, and Vexara felt her quantum heart skip not with malfunction, but with something far more dangerous and wonderful: hope. The light faded gradually, leaving Vexara alone in the chamber. Lyralanth was gone if she had ever truly been there, but her laughter echoed in the crystalline walls like a promise. Vexara's enhanced senses detected no trace of another presence, yet the warmth of that impossible touch lingered on her fingertips. Her comm system crackled to life. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from your location. Are you?" "I'm fine, Supervisor." Vexara's voice emerged, steadier than she felt. "Continue monitoring from the surface. I require additional time for analysis." She stood in the singing chamber, surrounded by veins of chromium that pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat, not the mechanical precision of her quantum processor, but the irregular, passionate beat of something alive. Each pulse brought another memory, another moment she had locked away in her pursuit of perfect efficiency. Her first kiss under the binary sunset of Kepler-2 to be. The tears she had shed when her parents died in the corporate wars. The joy she had felt when her first business venture, a small shipping company dedicated to connecting isolated colonies, had succeeded not because of ruthless calculation, but because she had genuinely wanted to help people reach each other across the vast loneliness of space. When had helping people become exploiting them? When had connection become control? Her personal transport's AI chimed through her neural implant. "CEO Korthani, urgent communication from headquarters. The board of directors is requesting immediate conference regarding the Kepler-4 to be liquidation." Vex closed her enhanced eyes and accessed the communication through her neural link. 12 holographic figures materialized around Hertha, most powerful beings in known space, representing species from across the galaxy. Each one owed their position to her patronage, their wealth to her vision of perfectly efficient expansion. "The Kepler situation has created complications," announced board chairman Vorthak, his insectoid features clicking with agitation. "The worker uprising has spread to 7 other systems. They're demanding what they call humane treatment protocols." Vexara processors automatically began calculating suppression strategies, military intervention, economic sanctions, targeted elimination of leadership figures. The uprising could be crushed within a standard week, with minimal impact on quarterly projections. But another part of her, a part that sounded remarkably like Lyralanth's laughter, whispered different possibilities. "What are their specific demands?" she asked. The board members exchanged glances that conveyed surprise across multiple species. Chairman Vorthak's mandibles twitched uncertainly. "Living wages, safety regulations, the right to unionize, and..." He paused. "Parental leave policies." Parental leave. Vexara felt something twist in her chest, not a malfunction of her quantum heart, but an echo of the memory of holding her sister's newborn daughter, decades before she had chosen enhancement over humanity. "That's inefficient," Precisely. Board member Krextala's tentacles writhed with indignation. We estimate a 23% reduction in productivity if we accommodate such emotional luxuries. The shareholders will revolt. Vexera's enhanced mind ran the calculations automatically. The board was correct. Meeting the workers' demands would reduce immediate profits significantly. Every economic model supported military suppression as the optimal solution. But standing in the chamber filled with cronium-stored possibilities, she found herself asking a question her quantum heart had never been programmed to process. What if profit wasn't the only measure of success? Schedule a public address, she commanded. All systems, all platforms. I want every worker, every citizen, every being in our territories to receive the transmission, ma'am. Chairman Vorthak's compound eyes glittered with confusion. Are you announcing the military suppression personally? I'm announcing a new corporate philosophy, Vexera said, her voice carrying harmonics she hadn't used in decades. Quantum Dynamics Corporation is implementing immediate reforms. The holographic board members erupted in multilingual protests, but Vexera's enhanced hearing filtered their voices into a single pattern: fear. They were afraid of change, afraid of inefficiency, afraid of the same weakness she had spent 30 years eliminating from herself. She thought of Lyralanth's smile, of the laughter that had called her into the depths of an asteroid to remember who she used to be. The reforms are non-negotiable, she continued. Living wages, safety protocols, family leave, and worker representation on all operational decisions, effective immediately. The shareholders will destroy you. Krextala's bioluminescent patches flared with rage. Your own board will vote you out. Then they'll have to do it without their largest stakeholder, Vexera replied, her quantum processors already calculating the redistribution of her personal holdings. I'm divesting 60% of my stock and establishing a worker equity fund. The silence that followed was profound enough to make the cronium veins pulse brighter, as if the mineral itself was responding to the shockwaves of such unprecedented change. Board member Thamex, an ancient reptilian whose species had been corporate oligarchs for millennia, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. You've malfunctioned, Korthany. No one sacrifices power for sentiment. No one chooses inefficiency over profit. Vexera smiled, actually smiled, feeling facial muscles she hadn't used in years respond to genuine emotion. You're wrong, Thynax. Someone just did. She terminated the connection and stood alone in the singing chamber, feeling simultaneously more isolated and more connected than she had in decades. Her quantum heart ran diagnostic after diagnostic, seeking the error that would explain her behavior, but finding only the steady rhythm of something approaching peace. Above her, she could hear the mining platform humming with activity as news of her reforms spread through the communication networks. Some voices carried fear, others hope, but all of them carried something she had forgotten existed in the corporate territories. The sound of people talking to each other as equals rather than resources. Tomorrow, she would face the consequences of her choice. Tonight, she would listen to the cronium sing and remember what it felt like to be human. The corporate coup began at 0600 Standard Galactic Time, exactly 18 hours after Vexera's reform announcement. Her personal AI delivered the news with characteristic digital detachment. Emergency board meeting concluded at 0547. Vote of no confidence passed unanimously. Security forces are en route to arrest you for breach of fiduciary duty and corporate treason. Vexera stood on the observation deck of mining platform Omega-7, watching the sleek black shapes of quantum dynamics enforcement vessels emerge from hyperspace like predatory fish. 12 capital ships, enough firepower to reduce the asteroid to constituent atoms. The board wasn't taking chances. Ma'am, Supervisor Nithara approached cautiously, her forearms gesturing uncertainty. The platform's defense grid is online, but against a fleet that size, ... She left the sentence unfinished. Stand. "Down all weapons," Vexera commanded. "Open all communication channels. I want every being in the system to hear this." Her enhanced vocal processors reached across radio frequencies, hyperspace relays, and quantum entanglement networks, carrying her words to mining platforms, colony, ships, and corporate headquarters throughout the galaxy. When she spoke, her voice carried new harmonics, not the cold precision of a quantum heart, but the warm complexity of something rediscovering its humanity. "Citizens of the quantum dynamics territories, this is Vexara Quathoni. In approximately 7 minutes, the corporate enforcement fleet will arrive to arrest me for the crime of treating you as people instead of resources." The communications array lit up with thousands of responses: miners on distant asteroids, technicians on orbital stations, families in the agricultural colonies that fed the corporate machine. Most carried the same message: they were listening. 30 years ago, I chose to replace my heart with a machine because I believed efficiency was more important than empathy. I convinced myself that treating people as economic units would create a more profitable universe. She paused, thinking of Lyralanth as laughter echoing through chromium-veined stone. I was wrong. The enforcement fleet was close enough now that she could see individual weapon batteries tracking the mining platform. Vexera's quantum processors calculated exactly 47 seconds until weapons range. The board of directors believes you exist to generate profits for shareholders who have never met you, never shared your struggles, never risked their lives in the deep places where civilization's resources are born. They believe your worth can be measured in quarterly reports and productivity metrics. Around her, the platform's crew had gathered Cretosians and Zephyrians, Andromedans, and baseline humans, dozens of species united by the simple dignity of honest work. They weren't looking at her with the fear she had grown accustomed to seeing in subordinates' eyes. They were looking at her with something far more dangerous: hope. But here's what I've learned in the depths of an asteroid. Listening to the universe itself sing, every being who has ever looked up at the stars and wondered about their place in the cosmos is worth more than any balance sheet can calculate. Your love for your families, your dreams for your children, your hope for a future where work creates meaning instead of just profit. These aren't inefficiencies to be eliminated. They're the only things that make existence worthwhile. The lead enforcement vessel was broadcasting surrender demands now, but Vexera noticed something unexpected in the communication patterns. The ship's crew frequencies carried unofficial chatter, uncertainty, debate, voices questioning their orders for the first time in their military careers. The old system promises security in exchange for servitude, wealth for a few in exchange for poverty for many. I helped build that system, and I won't insult your intelligence by claiming I didn't benefit from your exploitation. She looked directly into the primary communication array, knowing her words were being recorded for what might be history or evidence in a treason trial. But today, I'm offering something different. Not just reform, but revolution. Not just better conditions, but partnership. Her personal fortune, accumulated over 3 decades of ruthless expansion, began transferring through automated systems she had programmed during the long night in the Chromium chamber. Worker equity funds, education initiatives, colony infrastructure projects, all funded by the wealth she had extracted from their labor. To the enforcement fleet approaching this position, you're not soldiers, you're working people, like everyone else. Your families live in the same corporate housing, shop in the same company stores, hope for the same better future. The choice you make in the next 60 seconds will determine whether that future belongs to all of us, or just the 12 beings who sit on the board of directors. The enforcement vessels had reached weapons range, but something unprecedented was happening. Individual ships were breaking formation, their crews broadcasting messages of support for the reforms. Not all of them. Vexara's enhanced sensors detected at least 4 vessels, maintaining attack postures but enough to create chaos in the chain of command. The platform's communication array exploded with voices from across the corporate territories. Mining stations declaring independence from board authority. Colonial governors announcing worker protection laws. Transport pilots refusing to carry enforcement troops. "This is Admiral Corvatash of the enforcement vessel Prophet's Edge," a gravelly voice announced on all frequencies. "CEO Korthany, you are ordered to surrender for immediate transport to corporate headquarters." Vexera smiled, feeling facial muscles respond to genuine emotion for the second time in decades. "Admiral, this is Vexera Korthony, former CEO and current advocate for the revolutionary concept that people matter more than profit margins. I'm not surrendering, but I am extending an offer." "What offer?" "Join us. Your crew, your ships, your expertise. In keeping peace we need, all of it to build something better than what we're tearing down. The board can't run a galactic corporation without the people who do the actual work. Every miner, every technician, every pilot who chooses cooperation over exploitation makes their power weaker and our future stronger." The silence stretched across the star system, filled with the weight of impossible decisions and unprecedented possibilities. When Admiral Corvatash spoke again, his voice carried a tremor that suggested his own quantum-enhanced heart was experiencing something very much like malfunction. "Prophet's Edge to all vessels. Stand down weapons. Repeat, stand down all weapons. It appears we have a revolution to join." Vexera closed her enhanced eyes and felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood, the joy of not being alone in the dark. 6 months after the revolution, that corporate historians would call the Great Inefficiency, Vexera stood in the same chromium chamber where she had first heard Lyralanth's laughter. The asteroid had been transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history, a workers' parliament, where representatives from every inhabited system came to debate the future of post-corporate civilization. The changes had been swift and sweeping. The old board of directors had been disbanded, their assets redistributed to education and infrastructure funds. Admiral Corvatash's enforcement fleet had become a rescue and exploration service, carrying medical supplies to distant colonies instead of corporate orders. The mining platforms had doubled their safety protocols, while somehow increasing both productivity and worker satisfaction, a paradox that made the few remaining economists question their fundamental assumptions about efficiency. "You look different," said a familiar voice behind her. Vexera turned to find Lyralanth, sitting cross-legged in the same spot where they had first met, but she was no longer translucent. The chromium's glow had given her apparent substance, though she still radiated that impossible joy that made the chambers sing in harmony. "You look more real," Vexera replied, settling beside her other self. "Is that what happens when possibilities become actualities?" "Something like that." Lyralanth's laugh carried new harmonics, now just joy, but satisfaction, pride, the complex music of dreams becoming reality. "Though I think the real change is in you. When did you decide to replace the quantum processor?" Vexera touched her chest, where a new heart beat with steady, organic rhythm. The surgery had been dangerous, reversing 3 decades of cybernetic enhancement while maintaining the neural pathways necessary for complex thought. But Dr. Mathera Goldweaver, the galaxy's leading expert in biomechanical integration, had worked for weeks to give her back what she had voluntarily discarded. "Last month, when I held Supervisor Nithera's newborn daughter," she said, "my quantum heart calculated her statistical probability of survival, her projected economic output, her expected lifespan. But when she grabbed my finger with her tiny hand, I realized I wanted to feel wonder, not just analyze it." Around them, the chromium veins pulsed with the stored emotions of thousands of beings who had visited the chamber since its discovery. Joy, hope, love, grief, determination, the full spectrum of sentient experience crystallized in living stone. The asteroid had become a pilgrimage site, a place where people came to remember that efficiency without empathy was just another form of entropy. The board members who survived the trials, they still don't understand, Liralanth observed. They keep insisting that treating people well is economically unsustainable. They're not entirely wrong, Vexera admitted. Profit margins are down across most sectors. Productivity has shifted from quantity to quality. Some shareholders lost fortunes when we redistributed the wealth, but Vexera smiled, feeling the expression transform her entire face. But happiness is up 347% in worker satisfaction surveys. Infant mortality has dropped to the lowest levels in galactic history. 3 new star systems have requested membership in the Workers' Alliance, and yesterday, the Andromeda Collective sent ambassadors asking how they can implement similar reforms. The laughter is spreading, Liralanth said, her voice carrying the same musical quality that had first drawn Vexera into the depths of the asteroid. It is Vexera reached out and took her other self's hand, feeling the warmth of possibilities. Fulfilled. Dr. Goldweaver says the Cronium formations are appearing on other worlds now. Places where corporate exploitation has been replaced by cooperative development. The universe itself seems to be learning to store joy instead of just suffering. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the chamber sing with the voices of beings who had discovered that their dreams mattered more than their productivity quotas. Through the communication relay, Vexera could hear reports from across the Alliance territories. New schools opening on mining worlds. Artistic colonies flourishing on previously exploited planets. Exploration fleets launching not to extract resources, but to make contact with distant civilizations. I have to ask, Liralanth said eventually, do you ever regret it? Giving up the power, the certainty, the perfect efficiency of the quantum heart? Vexera considered the question as her organic heart beat its irregular, passionate rhythm. Since the surgery, she had experienced uncertainty, worry, moments of doubt that her quantum processors would have instantly resolved. She had made decisions based on hope instead of calculation, chosen compassion over optimization, prioritized meaning over profit. Yesterday, a little Zephyrian girl from the Kepler colonies sent me a drawing, she said. It showed her family's new house, the one they could afford after we implemented living wages. She wrote that she wants to be an explorer when she grows up, to find new worlds where people can be happy. She pulled out the actual drawing, its crayon colors bright against the Cronium's ethereal glow. My quantum heart would have calculated the statistical probability of her achieving that goal, optimized her education path for maximum economic output, processed her dreams as inefficient resource allocation, and your human heart hopes she finds something wonderful in the dark between the stars, and maybe laughs with the same joy you showed me in this chamber. Vexera folded the drawing carefully, tucking it back into her pocket. No, Liralanth, I don't regret choosing love over efficiency. I regret that it took me 30 years to remember that the universe runs on wonder, not profit margins. Liralanth squeezed her hand, and for a moment, they were both the same person, the woman who had chosen enhancement, and the woman who had chosen humanity, unified in the present moment where both possibilities existed simultaneously. The workers are building monuments, Liralanth said. Not to you, but to the idea that change is possible, that people can choose cooperation over competition, that civilizations can measure success and happiness instead of just wealth. Good, Vexera replied, though I hope they remember to leave space for new dreams. The most dangerous thing we could do now is decide we've found the perfect system and stop growing. The chamber's Cronium veins flared brighter, storing this moment the choice to remain open to change, to value growth over stagnation, to trust in the possibility that tomorrow could be better than today. Somewhere in the crystal matrix, Vexera's words joined the laughter of thousands of beings who had discovered that the most efficient system was one that made room for joy, as they sat together in the Singing Stone, former CEO and the humanity. She had rediscovered, the universe itself seemed to laugh a sound like stellar formation, like the first words of newborn civilizations. like the echo of every heart that had ever chosen love over logic, and found that the choice made them stronger, not weaker. The revolution had succeeded not through force or strategy, but through the simple recognition that laughter in the darkness was worth more than all the cold efficiency in the galaxy, and in chambers of crystallized possibilities scattered across 1,000 worlds. That laughter continued to grow, teaching the universe that the greatest profit came not from what you could extract from others, but from what you could give to them freely. The story had no ending. Because the best stories never do, they simply become the beginning of something even more wonderful in the depths of corporate space, where efficiency had replaced empathy and profit had crushed possibility. One woman's journey from machine precision to human compassion sparked a revolution that taught the universe itself to laugh. For in the end, the most efficient system was one that made room for joy, and the most profitable investment was in the dreams of those who dared to hope for something better than the cold calculation of endless growth.